Guyana, a former British colony, is a tropical paradise of lush forests and stunning scenery. But dirt poor, the country's trying to assert itself against Western dominance. Bharat Jagdeo, a Soviet-trained economist, is president. Every day he struggles to improve his country's fortunes against desperate odds. Granted exclusive access, we follow the embattled leader and his cabinet over 6 roller coaster months. The president of Guyana is under intense pressure on 2 fronts. At home, he must deal with serious allegations of corruption which have been leveled against his Home Affairs Minister. On the international front, the all-powerful United States is breathing down his neck. The president summoned his cabinet ministers to discuss a looming financial crisis. The US is claiming that Guyana has a major problem in the trafficking of women for the purposes of prostitution, which it's not addressing. As a result, the US has placed Guyana on the most serious Tier 3 category for this offense. Unless the government takes effective action within 60 days, the US will impose economic sanctions.
The 60-day requirement is standard. It's how we got onto this category and onto Tier 3 that bothers me more than the 60 days requirement. I think it's unfair. I think it's unfair, and I think it took place just because of anecdotal evidence.
I still think that I would like to see one of those cases that they say that they have documented. That information has not been shared with us. The thing is, Guyana being a country that benefits from aid, and one of our biggest donors is the United States and so on, it is in our interest to keep them happy. With aid comes conditions. There are conditionalities anyhow.
I don't resent conditionalities as such. What I have problems with is people who sit in institutions far away from the country, some who've never even visited your country. They don't understand the context, and they try to put in place generic or general conditions that don't have any meaning for your country.
We asked the American ambassador to explain why Guyana has been placed on the Tier 3 category, but he refused to give us an interview. There's certainly prostitution in Guyana, but without producing any evidence, the US is claiming that the prostitutes who work in the thinly disguised brothels that operate as bars have been taken there against their will. The Americans are threatening Guyana with dire penalties. Furious, the president feels he is being bullied.
Many countries that are significantly greater offenders and who have a major problem, including countries in Europe, where you have people from Eastern Europe being trafficked into Europe, they're on Tier 1. To get on Tier 3, you have to have about 100 documented cases, which is not the case in Guyana.
But Mr. President is trapped. Uncle Sam calls the shots. If the US says trafficking exists in Guyana, the government must go and find it. So the president has instructed Minister Bibi Shadek to set up a task force to investigate the allegations.
And as we speak, they're finalizing a proposal for action for the next month or 6 weeks to go out into the communities, because the issues have all been identified. But the public awareness campaign has to go on, and we have to meet with businessmen and all that. All that is catered for within our first 2-month plan that I've given to you there.
The President.
The president's domestic worries are equally pressing. His Minister for Home Affairs, Ronald Gajraj, stands accused of serious charges, which, if true, could topple the government. Allegedly, Gajraj has acted illegally in response to a crime wave that swept the country after 5 highly dangerous prisoners broke out of the main prison in Georgetown. the capital of Guyana, in February 2002.
In that process, they had one officer was shot and one officer was stabbed to death in that corner and died on his way to the hospital.
For months after the jail breakout, the police and the army seemed unable to control a torrent of violent crime.
During that period, you find a lot of policemen being gunned down in the streets. Also, there were other civilians being kidnapped for ransom, being kidnapped and killed.
Reports started to circulate that a death squad had been set up to take out the fugitives.
So far, 4 of them have been killed and one still alive.
But the deaths didn't stop there. At least 40 other killings and dozens of kidnappings were blamed on the mysterious assassins. And the word on the street was that the operation was being masterminded by the Home Affairs Minister Ronald Gadraj. The accusations against the minister surfaced publicly in February 2004, when the brother of this man, George Bacchus, was killed in a drive-by shooting. Bacchus, a convicted criminal, was convinced that he was the intended victim. Fearing for his life, he went to the press, claiming that he was a former death squad informant working for Mr. Gadraj. The minister vehemently denies these allegations. Bacchus is now in hiding where we filmed him.
Why one thing? You don't know everything, but I come like a snitch. I inform more. Coming by you, yeah. Wait, who you want to kill? Adam? Hey, Adam, the one want to kill you, yeah? A dangerous game. Yeah. I come like a spy then, collecting information and carrying back there, you know?
These men leaving court are 2 of the alleged murderers of Bacchus's brother. The other accused died in mysterious circumstances while hospitalized in police custody. Bacchus is expected to testify at the inquiry into his brother's death in a few days' time.
Me and myself and brother resemble. So the night now, when they come to now, was the wrong one, right? When they come to the car and they know, right? What's going? What are the right one? What are the right one there? And when Sean raise the gun like this, say so, right? Right? I don't know if the gun snap, if it's empty, or we just raise it because I'm scared. I don't know. After then, right? I make so. I was in the hospital now. I see my brother there. It's gone by. I did the biggest. I make so. Mr. Gadraj, Sean them just killed my brother. Same one who raised the gun. Sean just killed my brother. Here you what? Here we are, and get back to you. And he put on me phone, right? So I call you back again, right? I make so. I said, man, boss, I tell him, man, just kill me, brother. Here we are. I can send the police.
The situation is fraught with danger for the president. Not surprisingly, the leader of the opposition, Robert Corbyn, is using the death squad charges to make political capital. He's keeping up the pressure on the president by calling for Minister Gadraj's resignation and for a commission of inquiry to be set up. The government has ignored these demands, so Mr. Corbyn's party has withdrawn from any dialogue with them.
And we will determine when it is most appropriate, if necessary at all, to go to the Parliament. But I wish to state that nowhere in our statement have we said that we have boycotted the Parliament. We boycotted the debate.
For today's sitting, 27 members of the PNCR, the list is with the clerk.
The opposition seats are empty, but this doesn't deter Mr. Gadraj from launching a furious attack on Mr. Corbyn's party, the PNCR.
Mr. Speaker, in conclusion, I have been in recent weeks the target of a vicious and politically orchestrated campaign of the PNCR. The most outrageous allegations have been made against me in sections of the media and at political meetings. As Minister of Home Affairs, I did what I felt I had to do within the confines of the law. And if it were necessary, I'd do it all over again. for the interest and benefit of the people of this country. I have remained quiet on this issue, but that is not to suggest there is any guilt. I dare the PNC and any other to come with what evidence they have that can withstand scrutiny, not to come on a whole set of allegations called from this newspaper, that newspaper, and the other newspaper. They even seek to make the dead talk in order to facilitate their motives. That is the PNC, what they've been doing. Shameless, without any integrity. But all they want to do is to malign people, to go into character assassination, with the hope that that would bring down the PPP civic government. Not at all, Mr. Speaker. Not at all.
Thank you.
So that they can identify.
Meanwhile, under pressure from the Americans, Minister Shadegg has set up a task force to investigate the allegations of human trafficking, even though she doesn't really believe it exists. She kicks off with a public awareness campaign on the media, suggesting that people should report suspected cases of human trafficking if they come across it in their communities.
Please, to make it public, to bring it to our attention, to the attention of the police, to the attention of our ministry, to the attention of somebody in authority who will take action on it.
While the minister goes on air, a camera crew from the main government news agency is trawling the streets, gathering covert footage for a video about human trafficking. The government has to convince the US that it's dealing with its phantom problem.
You ready, Pat?
The crew circle round the red light districts of Georgetown, but all the prostitutes seem to be lying low.
You see kids there? I don't see none of them around here. Not that thing.
It's not going very well. The crew can't find anybody to film. Maybe they knew they were coming. The next morning, there's a post-mortem to find out why they didn't get the evidence they need.
I think one, it was too early, yes, because we didn't really get a lot of people. We left 8 o'clock.
Is it the case we may not find the most suitable footage to go in the script? I think what we need to do, and the point we need to bring out, is that we have difficulty in us locating this problem.
But we still need the footage. What do we do there?
Let's go probably Saturday night, 2 ladies of the night with a cameraman. Don't dress up as if you're going to church, Beverly.
I don't fit the image.
We gotta go to a makeover. Michelle, dress as if you're out there for some business. Shed the glasses. If you, that's a much more difficult. Put a lot of makeup on and a lot of short skirt.
But the filming expedition never happens. Instead, the government team go for the cheaper option, free videos produced by the United Nations highlighting the problem of human trafficking. Across town, Mr. Corbyn, leader of the opposition party, is greeting a group of Caribbean beauty queens.
You sure I'm not going to get confused being mixed up with these charming ladies here?
Miss St. Lucia asks him a question about life in Guyana, giving Corbyn a chance to go on the offensive.
What do you think is your biggest problem in Guyana?
What's the biggest problem?
Like if you had to take care of something right now, what would it be?
I would say the biggest immediate problem is the more recent developments of a new phenomenon in our country, and that is the emergence of what you may have read in the press about death squads and so on, where people have been killed.
It's an odd setting for a party political attack, but Corbyn's convinced that he's got the government on the run.
We believe the death squads have been directed centrally by the state for various reasons. It's a dangerous development, and it's a matter which has preoccupied a lot of us in the political hierarchy.
By tomorrow, catwalks and swimsuit competitions will all seem rather trivial. Overnight, there's an arson attack at the Ministry of Home Affairs. Anti-government graffiti is scrawled all around town, including outside the Ministry of Tourism, Trade and Commerce. The minister in charge, Mr. Nadir, calls the principal target his colleague, Mr. Gajraj.
I'm calling you out of concern. You know, last night we had the arson of the Ministry of Home Affairs. The arson. Okay, but in front of my building, there is a sign painted in red on the road. Something about Gajraj must go now. The other concern for me too is if we have 24-hour guards and nobody could see anything, something happened. Either we didn't have the two guards or one was sleeping and the other one was somewhere else. Right?
We requested an interview with Mr. Gajraj, but he declined. Mr. Corbyn, however, is happy to share with us his conspiracy theory about the arson attack.
We see this as a very sinister development which we have to take very seriously, and that is why we've called in the police to have a thorough investigation. And while we've been carrying out this peaceful campaign over the last 2 months, without an incident, this appearance of this alleged arson attempt at the Ministry of Home Affairs appears. And it has happened at a time when the government was predicting that there'll be violence and there'll be fires, etc., etc.
A group called the People's Movement for Justice has been organising demonstrations, calling for the resignation of Mr. Gajraj. Today, the march is led by Mr. Corbyn.
We're moving. Get it behind.
Mr. Gajraj has admitted to dealings with at least one of the alleged hitmen, but he denies ordering any killings. He says they were arranging weapons recoveries and sharing information.
It's murder! It's murder! It's state-sponsored murder! It's murder! It's murder! It's state-sponsored murder! It's murder! It's murder! It's state-sponsored murder!
These marches will continue for several weeks, maintaining the pressure on the government. And there's no let-up in the pressure from the US. Time's running out, and the threat of economic sanctions looms ever closer. So Minister Shadid is off to the mining areas, where women are allegedly being abducted into a life of prostitution. Monitoring her efforts to uncover the traffickers are 2 US observers. Eric Falls and Rachel Owen from the State Department get off the plane. They're here to meet representatives of the local mining communities.
We have come to Region 1 because we have been told of people in the mining areas being forced to go into the mining camps and prostituting themselves for somebody else's gain. We'd like to hear from you if you know of any instances in your area or in the surrounding areas where people are being trafficked for whatever reason.
To satisfy Guyana's paymasters, the minister has to prove she's trying hard to uncover human trafficking.
Yes.
I was out in the field going to Arakaka about a week ago.
Okay.
And I was talking with a friend of mine who was driving the vehicle. 2 girls stopped him, 2 Amerindian girls. And when he asked question, he said, the miners in there went and brought them, right, to work with them in the back dam.
That is trafficking in persons. You know what? We hear plenty of these stories in Georgetown already. And I'm saying that we come here, we need to get who it is, where it is. Does anybody know of any business people who come out into your area? I heard stories about, there's a place called Eyelash near here. I'm telling you what I heard. Trucks come and take young women into Eyelash for the purposes of prostitution. Is there anybody who has proof of that? Who can tell me, you know, who can give me some confirmation of this? Anybody who has any information, we can take your information confidentially. We want to try to get to the people who are doing this thing, if they're doing it. Okay? Thank you very much. I'm still hearing that nobody here has any specific evidence, and I'm asking for specific cases, and I'm not getting specific cases. So I I am not satisfied that I have heard that, yes, here is a case, substantiated, confirmed case of trafficking. I don't know what the policies of the American government is, and I don't know what devious means they use to achieve those policies, and I don't know, and I can't really, come to a conclusion or make an accusation that, well, we're being tapped. What I do know is that we were named as a Tier 3 country, and I've asked for specifics, and I have not been given any.
We would rather not be on the BBC if that's all right.
This is the first time the U.S. State Department people are here.
It's that first time?
Yeah, they've never come to Ghana before. You know what? We're already on Tier 3. I mean, it's already printed. So we just have to get off the damn thing. That's all.
The government's efforts to do the US's bidding paid off. President Bush subsequently announced that Guyana would be removed from the Tier 3 category of offenders in human trafficking.
I was very upset about it. Very, very upset, because they've already destroyed the reputation of my country. Some junior officer sitting in a department in a country far away from Guyana, who's never visited my country, puts this country on the worst category of trafficking in persons without any documentary evidence. And it has destroyed our reputation.
Minister Gadraj's reputation is also on the line. He's resisted calls for his resignation despite pressure from inside Guyana and from the international community. So far, the president has claimed the allegations are an internal matter, best dealt with through a police investigation. Now he's called a press conference. An important announcement is expected. There's intense speculation among the waiting journalists.
But we need to know, first of all, if there's going to be an independent investigation. I don't know what he's going to say, but I'm certain he's going to talk about allowing Gadraj to go on.
There will be no questions at this time on the matter he intends to disclose.
What's the matter, Robert?
The president shall disclose that matter.
No, what is it?
When the president comes, you'll know what that matter is.
Why no questions, Robert?
At a future time, we'll have questions.
That's when I asked why.
Oh, why? Time does not permit.
Robert, between me and you.
If it's between me and you, we gotta go outside. I got too many people here. All right.
Ladies and gentlemen of the media, having regard to the request by the Minister of Home Affairs to me several weeks ago, I have decided to put in place mechanisms for the conduct of an inquiry into the allegations of criminal misconduct against him. The Minister of Home Affairs has assured me that he has conducted himself lawfully and within the legal powers of his office. The Minister of Home Affairs enjoys my confidence and that of my entire cabinet. I've instructed that measures be put in place immediately for the establishment of a Presidential Commission of Inquiry. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. No questions.
The opposition are still not satisfied. They want the inquiry's terms of reference expanded to investigate the prison breakout and the reign of violence, as well as the allegations against Mr. Gadraj. President Jagdeo ignores their demands. Shortly afterwards, the scandal takes a turn for the worse. George Bacchus, the accuser of Ronald Gadraj, has remained in hiding. Then, just before he's due to give evidence at the trial of his brother's alleged murderers, Georgetown wakes up to the news that Bacchus has been murdered in the night. Local journalist Adam Harris talks to the widow of Bacchus's murdered brother.
Nobody else has been around, nobody else seen nothing?
No.
Nobody else see who?
No.
They found the car or something?
No.
Jesus Christ. Sorry, girl. Well, at about 3:30 this morning, I got a phone call that George Bacchus was killed. I came here a short while ago, and I'm hearing all manner of things.
You would link the killing of his brother with the killing of George Bacchus?
Yes, I would. When they killed the brother on the 5th or 6th of January, people heard them driving away saying, wrong man. George himself is on record as saying he was the target. They missed him. So this time around, they came back and they did the job. George Bacchus has been saying a lot of things. He has been implicating people. I suppose if someone is implicating you in a business, the easiest way to stop him talking is to kill him, and I think that's what happened to George. He spoke just too often. His death also has implications for the preliminary inquiry into his brother's death. He cannot be cross-examined on that anymore because he isn't around. So I suppose the case is going to fall flat, and that's rather unfortunate.
Angie, go and get a liar and appear at the station.
It looks suspect in Metro, you get a liar or tell him you're not saying anything or
get
tell you
a liar and go to the station. You have to tell you before they lock you up. Get a liar and go to the station.
Don't be afraid. You know.
Police continue to investigate the death of George Bacchus, who was killed by an unidentified person so far. Bacchus was struck by 3 bullets while in his bedroom by an intruder.
Dr. Roger Luncheon, Secretary to Cabinet, says the claims of the main parliamentary opposition, PNCR, about the government's involvement are reckless and provocative.
If you do not have proper terms of reference and proper conditions for an inquiry to be conducted, the whole exercise remains a farce.
The media has gathered once again, this time to witness the swearing-in of 2 of the commissioners on the Gajraj inquiry.
I, Yin Chang, do hereby solemnly declare that I will faithfully, impartially, and to the best of my ability
discharge the trust and perform the duties devolving upon me by virtue of the commission issued by His Excellency the President.
The commission can now start work, but with little spirit of cooperation between the rival political parties. His government bruised and battered, the strain is taking its toll. President Jagdeo takes issue with one of the journalists over his newspaper's reporting of the Gajraj affair.
We're putting both sides.
You're putting both sides, man. So you have the gall to tell me you're putting both sides?
Both sides.
Yeah.
Both sides. We carry both confessions and the retraction.
Carrying the two. You're carrying the one from the PNC and the one from Bacchus, not the government.
We carry the confession and the retraction.
Does he reckon that your reporting is not completely fair?
That was always his view, but you know, you take that view with a pinch of salt.
With the death of George Bacchus, the Commission of Inquiry has lost its main witness. Until it reports, Minister Gajraj is suspended. The Commission must now sift through the remains of the evidence and decide the fate of the Minister for Home Affairs. Meanwhile, the credibility of President Jagdeo's government also hangs in the balance. Since filming this program, we have asked if the President wishes to make any further comment. He has declined ahead of the outcome of the inquiry, which is expected within weeks. Next week, the President tackles the country's growing water crisis.